Assalamu alaikum. This is the first lecture of our lecture series on English essay, and today's topic is basic structure of the essay. So, what effectively this topic is about is that today we are going to talk about the very fundamentals of the CSS essay. I mean, how the essay is structured. You know, essay is not just a hodgepodge of 2000 to 2500 words. It's a very systematic, basically systematic piece of writing. I mean, there is a proper format to it, and since there's a proper format to it, our examiner, FPSC examiner, is also checking this essay by keeping in mind a proper format. So if the examiner is basically keeping in his mind a proper format, then we have to be very methodical with our essay. I mean, it's not just like we get the topic and we just start writing down whatever comes to our mind. No, there is a proper methodology to writing an essay, and that is what we are going to discuss today. So without further ado, let's move on. So the first questions which basically comes to mind when we talk about essays, what is an essay? I mean, a lot of the students don't know what actually the word essay means. So we will start off by defining an essay. So the dictionary meaning of the word essay is to attempt. Okay. Now in the context of CSS, it means that the basically examiner or FPSC gives you 10 topics in the paper, and you have to make an attempt to elaborate on or write about one topic. So effectively, you have to choose one out of 10 topics, and you have to make an attempt to elaborate on that topic. Basically, you have to tell the examiner about your thought process and how you have basically put it down on a piece of paper. Okay, that is what the word attempt means. Okay, so this is the dictionary meaning of the essay, that is to attempt, and in the context of CSS it means to attempt a particular topic. Okay, so moving on, we'll talk about the literary definition of the word essay. Okay, now this was the dictionary meaning. Now what is the literary meaning? An essay is an extended piece of writing that presents and supports a thesis or proposition. So first of all, let's discuss the word thesis or proposition. Now, thesis or proposition is basically the main crux of your essay. I mean, what is the stance which you are going to take in an essay? Okay. Now, let's suppose the topic is that democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. Now, democracy is basically the general topic, but the thesis or the proposition of that essay would be no more vulnerable in Pakistan. Okay, now you, of course, you will have to take a stance that either it is vulnerable or either it is not vulnerable. But regardless of whatever the stance you take, that stance will be your thesis or proposition, which would be either democracy is vulnerable in Pakistan or it is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. And democracy would be our general topic. I will discuss in more detail what the general topic is and what the specific topic is. But for the for the time being, just keep in mind that thesis or the proposition is the crux of your topic. And in the topic, for example, democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan, the thesis, the proposition, the main stance of your essay will be is either vulnerable or no more vulnerable in Pakistan. So we were talking about the definition of essay. Now it is an extended piece of writing, which means that we elaborate our thesis or proposition in a very elaborate manner. Okay, in a very lengthy, or you can say manner. Okay, in a very extended manner. How we do this? Basically, We write various body paragraphs. I will discuss the basically structure of an essay in a couple of slides. By writing various body paragraphs, which in a CSS essay are basically 15 to 20. So in those body paragraphs, we basically solidify our stance or our thesis or our proposition. Okay, and how we do that? How do we solidify our stance? By citing various examples, by giving various statistics, by giving various quotes of the established authorities. Okay, so that is how we present and support our thesis or proposition. So the moving on to the definition once again, an essay is an extended piece of writing that presents and supports a thesis or proposition. So we write basically in detail about a topic to support our stance, and the stance is basically our thesis statement or our proposition. So this word thesis statement, it will come very often in our lectures because this is the crux of the essay. Okay, so basically in simple words, essay is all about, you know, taking a stance and then supporting and elaborating it with different examples, with different statistics, with different quotations. Okay, so this was a literary meaning of the word essay. Now that we have discussed the dictionary meaning and literary meaning, let's move to the purpose of an essay. What is the purpose of an essay? It's basically, you know, same as the definition, but let's, for the sake of it, let's go through it. The main purpose of any essay is to discuss, describe, explain. I will discuss about persuade later on. Then interpret, analyze. Now why I have basically used different sort of lines, I will tell you later on. So the first basically types of essay in CSS exam are descriptive essays, which basically fall under the heading of describe, explain, or discuss. Okay, so these three: discuss, explain, and describe. So what sort of essays fall under these headings are basically typical traditional CSS essays like energy crisis in Pakistan. What are the causes of it? What are the effects of it? What are the recommendations basically? So these are the traditional essays, okay? And these are the essays we basically describe them by the terminologies like describe, explain, or discuss, okay? So these sort of essays are basically traditional CSS essays. Now coming to the persuade, okay, now this is basically about argumentative essays. Now the definition which I just, the essay which I just mentioned is democracy no more vulnerable in Pakistan. This is basically a persuasive or an argumentative essay. Okay, persuasive and argumentative are the same. Now in persuasive or argumentative essays, basically you have to take a stance and then you have to justify it. How you justify it, as I mentioned earlier, through various definition, through various citations, examples, statistics, and quotations. Okay, so the second category of the CSS essay was persuasive or argumentative essays. Now the third category is literary essays. Okay, this category is not mentioned here, but the third category is literary essays. Now you know, uh, these essays also come up in CSS exam often. Like the topic could be that, let's suppose, sweet are the fruits of labor. Okay, now this is a literary essay, but literary essays are a bit tricky, and I advise my students that only go for it if you are 100% sure that basically you can attempt them properly. So literary essays are a bit tricky. Even the students with the background in literature or linguistics don't go for those essays because they are tricky. And the last category of the essays were interpret or analyze essays. Now these are the two categories. Now these categories of essay are basically the essays which are basically research based essays. You often find various reports about research reports about several issues in Pakistan, like health issues, but these are very very elaborate essays and they require a lot of research. Okay, so these are outside the scope of our exam, but since they are also a type of essay, it is pertinent to mention them here. Okay, so these are basically outside the scope of our essay, because after all we have to write an essay within 3 hours, so we can't just write an essay of about 50 to 60 pages. Okay, that requires a lot of effort and it requires days, but since these are also forms of essays, I thought it is pertinent to mention them here. So now we are familiar in that in CSS we are going to come across three types of essays. Number one, persuasive or argumentative essays. This is one category. Number two, traditional essays like discuss, describe, explain essays. And number three, literary essays. Okay, like the topic could be of a literary essay could be a bird in hand is worth two in the bushes. So these are the basically three categories of essay in CSS. Now we will move on. So the structure of an essay, the main topic, the basically crux of our today's topic, structure of an essay. So an essay has three main parts. Okay, you should keep that in mind. This is the very, very crux of our today's lecture. An essay has three main parts, and what are those? Number one, introduction, which is, in other words, is called the introductory paragraph. Okay. Number two is the body of the essay, which consists of at least 15 paragraphs. Okay, it could be more, it could be 13 to 14, but the ideal length is 15 to 17 paragraphs in CSS exam. So the last portion of the essay is conclusion or the concluding paragraph. Now in the introduction, the what is the structure and anatomy of the introductory paragraph, I will discuss it in the next slide. What is the structure of a body paragraph, I will also discuss it in this lecture. And there is also a structure of concluding paragraph. That today we will discuss these in a very brief manner. We will discuss all three of these in more detailed versions in our separate lectures. Basically, I have separate lectures dedicated to each of them, where I will be discussing each of these with proper examples and different parts of each of these. Okay, introduction, body. You can't write introduction or body paragraphs in the same manner as you have written conclusion. Similarly, you can't write conclusion in the same way as you have written a body paragraph. So all of them basically have different structures, different approaches. So for now, you have to keep in mind that an essay has three main parts. Number one, introduction. Number two, body of the essay, which consists of 15 to 20 paragraphs. And lastly, the conclusion. So moving on, an introductory. Now, first, we will talk about the introduction of an essay, the first part basically of the essay. Now, an introductory paragraph has two parts. Remember, our introductory paragraph starts off with some general statements about the topic. Okay, let's suppose keeping the same topic which I mentioned in our first slide, just to make it easier for you to grab the concept, like, is democracy no more vulnerable in Pakistan? This is basically a topic from past papers. So in general statements, this is the first portion of our introductory paragraph, and this is the thesis statement, the second portion of our introductory paragraph. So in the general statements, we basically introduce the general topic of the essay. Okay, and why we do that? To capture the examiner's interest. Okay, so taking the example of, is democracy no more vulnerable in Pakistan, our general topic would be democracy. Okay, from that particular topic, democracy is the general topic. So we will start off our introductory paragraph by writing something about the general topic, that is democracy. Okay, then we narrow it down. And why we do that? Just to capture the reader's interest. Okay, just to give a background. Now I will discuss in more detail how do we write general statements, but over here, it would suffice to say that we start off our introductory paragraph with some general information about the topic. Now here we can write something about democracy, like, we can say that it is universally accepted that the fruits of democracy, are always there, something statement, something along those lines. Now after we have discussed the general topic, we narrow it down. Here I can elaborate it like this. These are general statements. Then we slowly narrow it down to a thesis statement. Okay. Now students often get confused here. They think that, okay, thesis statement is just one sentence that is to be written at the last, you know last portion of the introductory paragraph. No, I say, no, I differ. Basically, I say that it can be one sentence, it can be 2 to 3 sentences like this, or 4 sentences for that matter. Because let's not just, deflect from the main purpose of our thesis statement. The main purpose is to state the specific topic, and in that case it would be no more vulnerable in Pakistan. That is, either it is vulnerable in Pakistan, you can take either stance, but I have, let's suppose, taken the stance that it is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. What is no more vulnerable in Pakistan? Our general topic, which was democracy. So democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. This is what we are going to write about in our introductory paragraph, and this will consist of general statements and then specific statements, or the thesis statement. So what is the purpose of thesis statement? It states the specific topic, in this case no more vulnerable. It may list the subtopics or subdivisions. Okay, like why it is no more vulnerable: because of strong judiciary and independent media and increasingly vocal civil society. These are some factors. It may indicate the pattern of organization. Okay, let's suppose we are basically talking about energy crisis in Pakistan. So this thesis statement might sometimes indicate the pattern of our essay, how we are going to go about our essay. Like, first we write the reasons of energy crisis, then we write basically the uh, effects of those basically energy crisis, then we can come up with some recommendations. So our introductory paragraph can also basically tell the examiner how we are going to go about our essay. Okay, the structure of our essay. And lastly, it is normally the last sentence in the introductory paragraph. Now once again, I said that it doesn't have to be one sentence, it can be 3 to 4 sentences, provided that you transition smoothly from general statements to thesis statement. Now I have seen a lot of my students who basically write some general statements and then jump off to the thesis statement. Now, what negative impact it has on the examiner is that it breaks the fluency of your essay, coherency of your essay. Okay, so it puts the examiner off, literally. So what you have to do is you have to write general statements. These are general statements, and these narrow down to our thesis statement very smoothly. Okay, thesis statement portion, general statement portion. So this is the correct approach, and this is the wrong approach, because this breaks the coherency of your essay. So that's enough for this slide. That we talked about introduction in a very brief manner. Remember, I have a specific lecture dedicated to introduction. So what we have to keep in mind is that the introduction has 2 parts. Number one, general statements, which basically introduce the topic of the essay, and number two, thesis statement, which basically state the specific topic of the essay. Now moving on, this is an illustration of how do we write basically the introductory paragraph. I mean, what is general statements and what are thesis statement. So just go through this. It will take only a couple of seconds. Now, assuming that you have read this, let me tell you first that the text highlighted in blue is basically general statements of the introduction. And the text highlighted in yellow is basically the thesis statement for introductory paragraph. Okay. Now let's suppose the topic of our essay is my schooling experience in the US. Now, of course, this sort of topic can't be expected in CSS, but just to basically clarify the concept, okay, you have to basically focus on the concept here. My schooling experience in the US. So see how basically I have started this generally, okay, like basically here in this essay we're talking about someone's schooling experience in a particular country like US, okay, but we will start off generally, like going to a new school can be exciting for an international student. Of course, if I'm going to study to US, I'm also an international student. That's why I'm giving some general background. The years of education in a different country can be difficult and tumultuous. When I first arrived in the US to attend the university, I was overwhelmed and confused by everything. So, before delving deeply into my schooling experience in the US, I have basically discussed in general about the experience which students face when they go on to study abroad. So that's how I started off my essay, by giving some general information, okay, by some background information. So this is a very good way to start your introduction. Then in this yellow lines, I have basically narrowed down my topic to my thesis statement. That is what the crux of my essay is going to be. What am I going to write about in particular about the schooling experience? Okay. So here it goes. Fortunately, I met three very special friends who made a positive impact on my life during those years and helped me survive the trials of being a foreigner in a completely different educational system. So here I have basically hit the topic right away. I've talked about my schooling experience, which was the topic in the US. Okay, my schooling experience. So I have basically mentioned that I met three very special friends, okay, who made my schooling experience basically very pleasant in US. Okay, so I've started off generally, and then I narrowed it down to my schooling experience and how it was made very special by my three very special friends. Okay, I hope you have got the point. Now let's move on to the body of the essay. Now, body of the essay, as I told you, consists of 15, roughly 15 body para body paragraphs. It can be, of course, a couple of paragraphs less. It can be a couple of paragraphs more, provided on the number of ideas you have. So the body paragraphs are used to, what is the purpose of body paragraphs? They are used to develop your topic in a step-by-step basis. And number two, to prove your points. Okay. Now let's suppose I have chosen the topic of is democracy no more vulnerable in Pakistan. Now I have taken a stance that yes, democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. Now, of course, I have to prove this. Okay, I don't just take a stance and run away. No, I have to basically convince the examiner. I have to convince the examiner how? By proving my stance, and for that I will have to give him different points. Okay, and that for that I will have to develop my topic, my thesis statement. So the main purpose of the body paragraph is to justify your stance, to prove your point to the examiner. Okay, that why I believe that democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. Now, of course, I will write various paragraphs on this, like number one, judiciary, strong judiciary. Number two, social media. Sorry, excuse me. Number three, a vocal civil society. And you can write any number of points, but the purpose is that the body paragraphs are used to justify your stance. Okay, the body paragraphs should have some sort of pattern. Okay, now let's suppose I am talking about traditional CSS, say like energy crisis. So first of all, I would like to talk about the causes in the first half of the body paragraph. Then I would like to discuss the effects of energy crisis, okay, on different basically sectors like economic sector, okay, social effects. Then I will talk about some recommendations. Also, the body paragraphs should have some sort of pattern to them. Okay, you do not just jot down all the ideas, on in whatever sequence they come in the body of your essay. No, that also have to have some sort of pattern. Number second, the body paragraphs should have some logical division of ideas, that is division into subtopics and discussion of these subtopics in separate paragraphs. Now, for example, in the effects portion, in this portion we can write social effects, and then there could be various subheadings to social effects also. So that is what do I mean by subtopics. And of course, all those subheadings of social effects should be mentioned in separate paragraphs. So the purpose of the body paragraph is to develop your topic and prove or strengthen your stance. And secondly, the body paragraphs should have some sort of pattern, and they should be organized in some logical division. Okay, the ideas should be organized in some logical division. Now I will illustrate this with the example. Now, keeping in view the same essay, that is my schooling experience in US, I will basically illustrate the structure of a body paragraph. Now remember, I will discuss this body paragraph, how to write an effective body paragraph, in a separate lecture. But today, just to give you a flavor, that the body paragraph consists of three parts. Number one, topic sentence. Number two, supporting sentences, and number three, concluding sentence. Now, what is the topic sentence? Topic sentence is basically the sentence, the first sentence of your body paragraph, okay? And it introduces the topic of the essay, okay? Now, for example, let's suppose you have mentioned that, you know, democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan because of many factors. Now, the first body paragraph, which I will discuss, let's suppose, is about judiciary, okay? That the judiciary is very strong, okay? Or is becoming increasingly strong. And so that is why I think that democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. So that is the topic sentence of my first paragraph. That is what I am going to write about in that particular body paragraph. Okay. The first sentence of my paragraph should clearly convey to the examiner that what I am going to write about in that particular paragraph. Okay. So that is why it is called topic sentence. And remember, it has to be first sentence. After reading the first sentence of your body paragraph, the examiner should be able to know that what to expect in that particular paragraph. So here, read it. One of the first people I met was Joe Frida. Okay. Now here in the introductory paragraph, the topic of the essay was my schooling experience in the US. Now, in the thesis statement, basically I stated that my schooling experience in the US was very pleasant because of the three friends I mentioned. Okay. Now I will discuss the experience because of those three friends in three different body paragraphs. Okay. How they made my schooling experience in the US very special. It will take three different body paragraphs. Now remember, just to clarify the point, remember in the CSS, there can't be three body paragraphs. These have to be more, but just to clarify. So now that I have made the assertion in the introductory paragraph that my schooling experience in the US was very pleasant because of my three friends, I have to justify in my body paragraphs how they basically made my schooling experience in the US very pleasant. So I started off by writing the first sentence. Now the examiner knows that, okay, I'm going to talk about my friend Joe, how he made my schooling experience very good. So the lines in the red, basically, they are basically the supporting sentences. They support my topic sentence. Okay. Now read this. I first met Joe standing in a line at the bookstore. I was having a difficult time finding the books for the English classes I was taking my semester here. He not only helped me find my books, but also gave me some good advice on where to get tutorial help on campus and where I could find some good restaurants. We have become very best friends since then, and he has been so helpful in answering my questions I have about going to school in the US and about American culture. So, in the introductory paragraph, we said that three friends made my schooling experience very good. Okay, now these are the supporting sentences. These basically explain how Joe made my schooling experience very good. Basically, he helped me find books for English classes. He gave me good advice on tutorial campus. Okay, he gave me good tutorial help on the campus, and he suggested me some very good restaurants, and he also answered my other queries about American culture. So these are the basically supporting sentences. These support my topic sentence, which was that Joe helped made my schooling experience very good. So these are the sentences which elaborate, okay, which support my stance, the topic sentence which I have chosen. And this lastly is the concluding sentence of an introductory of a body paragraph. Sorry, if I hadn't met Joe that day, I might still be looking for the right books for my classes. So that basically is the concluding sentence of my body paragraph. Okay, so remember that a body paragraph has three parts. Number one, topic sentence. Number two, supporting sentences. And number three, concluding sentence. So this is the illustration of a typical body paragraph. Moving on. Now conclusion. The conclusion is the final paragraph in an essay. It has three purposes. We all know that concluding paragraph is the last paragraph in an essay, but it has three purposes. Remember, it signals the end of the essay. Okay, and how it signals to the examiner that our essay is coming to an end by the wording of the concluding paragraph. Like we can say that in conclusion, it can be said that though democracy suffered serious blows in the past, now because of factors like this, it seems that it is basically no more vulnerable in Pakistan or something like that. Basically, the wording of your essay should convey to the examiner that this is the last paragraph. Okay, I will discuss the illustration of a concluding paragraph also, but just to make you give you a flavor that how the body paragraphs, the concluding paragraph signals the examiner that our essay is coming to an end. And how it does this also, apart from wording, it reminds the reader of your main points in your essay. Remember, not all the points, but some main points, which were basically the main supporting material or the crux of your essay. And how you can remind the examiner of your main points in two ways. By number one, summarizing your subtopics. Okay, you can summarize the main topics, or you can paraphrase your thesis statement. Remember what was thesis statement? It was basically the main topic of your essay, the which you are going to take. Like, let's suppose the topic was, is democracy no more vulnerable in Pakistan? So I will somehow paraphrase the thesis statement, the yes, democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan because of factors like. So I will paraphrase it. Remember, never ever copy the thesis statement from your introductory paragraph. This will leave a very bad taste on the part of examiner. Okay, always paraphrase it, or you can summarize your main points. So these are the two ways to remind the examiner or about the main basically stance you have taken in the essay. So number three, it leads, that is the concluding paragraph leads the examiner with your final thoughts on the topic, that what was your original stance and how you look at it. Okay, how you look at the topic. Basically, it basically once again reiterates to the reader about your stance, the stance you have taken. Okay, so once again, when the examiner is basically coming to coming to finish reading your paper, once again he should be reminded about the final thoughts about your topic, so that there remains no doubt in his mind that you are basically very clear about your thought process. Okay, if you have taken a stance, then you have fully justified it, and you're once again reiterating that you are very clear about your thought process. Remember, the conclusion can also include an opinion, a prediction, or a solution to a problem. Now, it can be a solution to a problem. For example, if the topic is energy crisis, okay, it can be a prediction like democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan. I can say that, so that becomes a prediction, or it can be my opinion also. But remember, these all these things should be within the bounds of the material you have provided in the body paragraphs. Now you can't predict something which you have which basically doesn't have a basically supporting base in your essay. You can't predict more than what you have written in your essay. Okay, so the body paragraph, the concluding paragraph had three purposes: to signal to the examiner that your essay is coming to an end, to remind the examiner of your main points, and to leave the examiner with your final thoughts on the topic. So this is an illustration of a concluding paragraph, and I have taken the same topic just to basically make you comfortable that you are basically following the same gear. Okay, so the concluding paragraph, summary of main ideas, and then a promise or a resolution or a prediction or a solution. So the significance of kindness that these three people showed me and the impact that it has made on my life during my experience as an international student at State University cannot be underestimated. Okay, now this is the main idea of our essay, that they made a very good and pleasant impact on my basically studying experience as an international student, and I can't that can't be underestimated. Basically, it had a lifelong impact on my, you know, viewpoint, how I look at things. So now read the last sentence. I will never forget their friendship and will remember their examples of kindness to me whenever I encounter other foreigners in my country. So he had made a promise or a resolve in this instance, of course. Of course. So how you basically structure the concluding paragraph? You write the main ideas and you write a solution or a promise in this case. Of course, the CSS essay would be different, but this is just to basically make the concepts clear. Okay, let's suppose if I choose the topic like energy crisis, so I will write that yes, the energy crisis is very severe in Pakistan. Okay, due to, you know, the lag or the basically indifference of the previous regimes. So these are the main ideas basically which I have discussed in our essay. Then I will come to a basically prediction or a solution that, but if we take the effective steps in a timely manner, then there is basically no questioning that this energy crisis can't be resolved. So this could be basically a bifurcation or a structure of the concluding paragraph. Now remember, I will discuss each of these, that is introduction, number two, body body of the essay, and number three, the conclusion of an essay in more detail, and I have entire lectures dedicated to each of them. So don't worry if you are not getting 100%, but I hope that you should be able to get 100% because I have elaborated these with examples, with illustrations. So this is the visual representation of the structure of the essay. That's it: introduction, body paragraph one, body paragraph two, body paragraph three, and last, the conclusion. Of course, in CSS, it would be like 15 body paragraphs, or it could be a range basically, depending on the amount of material you have. It could be between 13 to 18 or 15 to 20. So there's no black and white rule as to how many paragraphs should be written in an essay. Okay, so moving on. Now this is also an overview or a visual representation of an essay. You know, this inverted triangle, this represents the traditional structure of the introductory paragraph, that we start off generally through general statements, and then we increasingly narrow our topic down to our thesis statement. And what was thesis statement? It was the main topic of our essay, which we are going to discuss about in our essay. So we did here the introduction. First, we write general statements and give information about the topic, background information about the topic. Then we come to thesis statement, which lists the main ideas in the essay. Basically, what are the main ideas which we are going to write about in our essay? So it starts off broadly and narrows down slowly and smoothly. Okay. Then there are body paragraphs, which basically support the main ideas of the thesis statement. Okay. Like if I have taken the stance that democracy is no more vulnerable in Pakistan, then of course in the body paragraphs, I will be writing supporting information to further basically strengthen my main ideas of the thesis statement. Okay, I will writing elaborating on my thesis statement by writing some supporting sentences. And remember, body paragraphs, as I have discussed, always start with the topic sentence. And what was the topic sentence? It was basically the topic of a body paragraph, the introductory paragraph, the first sentence of the body paragraph. Okay. And lastly, conclusion. It is a brief summary of the main points of an essay. Now you might start off with some main ideas and you give some broad implications about a topic. Now we will discuss outline. Okay, we have discussed the basic structure of our essay. Now we will be discussing about outlining. But the outline is basically, it can't be covered in one topic, so it will be basically discussed in the next lecture. So for now, for today, it is enough for you that basically paragraph or essay has a basic structure which consists of introduction, body paragraphs or the body of the essay, and conclusion. So I discussed in detail about the basic structure of introduction, the basic structure of body paragraphs, and the basic structure of conclusion. I have separate lectures dedicated to each of these. Okay, so today was just a cursory or overview of the basic structure of an essay. In the next lecture, we will be discussing about how to structure the outline of a CSS essay. Remember, there is a proper format to the outline. Okay, it's not just some students write by by starting with bullet points like 1 2 3. Some by start by writing bullet points like ABC. Some writes by writing basically ABC or alphabets in small caps. Some in some start by writing Romans. So students follow a host of patterns, but there is a particular formal pattern to the outline as far as CSS exams is concerned. Okay, so in the next lecture we will be discussing about the outline, how to structure the outline of our essay. So just revise this material I have talked about the essay, and in the next lecture I will talk about the outline of the essay. So until then, I hope that you will be at your preparation with the CSS. Good luck with your exams and keep the hard work going. Allah Hafiz and take care.